Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Business Africa. I am Amanga. Can South Sudan compete with Saudi Arabia in oil production? The country is convinced of this as it organizes its second international conference on oil and energy this week. What advances for the continent in terms of information and communication technologies? Another look at the program on the telecommunications show AfricaCom, held last week in South Africa. And gold mining, Malawi presents itself as the new El Dorado for miners. Hundreds of investors to invest in South Sudan's oil sector. The recent calm has allowed the young states to restart activities of some oil installations. Currently estimated at 130,000 barrels per day, oil production is expected to reach 210,000 barrels per day by the end of the year. Details with Natalie Wakam, Amelia Nakitimbo, and South Sudan correspondent Den Mashul.
South Sudan is thinking of rivaling Saudi Arabia in terms of oil production. This is the ambition of the country's petroleum minister, Ezekiel Lol Gatworth. He addressed hundreds of prospective investors from global oil farms this week.
We have a lot of oil, and we will continue to market South Sudan worldwide. The potentials of South Sudan is huge, and we can rival Saudi Arabia. Think big, don't think small.
The South Sudanese government is hoping to attract more diversified foreign investment with the second International Oil and Power Conference held in the capital, Juba.
The government will continue to work tirelessly to create an enabling environment for business to thrive in the Republic of South Sudan, including a fair and balanced local content regulation. The development of oil and gas sector will encourage economic diversification. Through international investment and the growth of our domestic sectors.
Oil production has been disrupted by the prolonged conflict, but the revitalized peace deal signed in September in Addis Ababa has brought hope for stability.
Access to information and communication technologies for all. This was one of the main highlights of the 2019 edition of the Telecommunications Fair held in South Africa. It is an emergency for the continent, with about 843 million people still not connected to the internet. Jean-David Mihamle and Ignatius Anor tell us more.
A gathering of players in the information, communication and technology industry in Africa. Cape Town, South Africa, played host to the 2019 edition of the Telecommunications Exhibition in Africa Conference. AfricaCom afforded participants the opportunity to explore technological innovations, trends, as well as networking. Telecom giants, startups, IT professionals and state agencies participated in this gathering. AfricaCom brought together some 14,000 attendees, 450 speakers and 400 exhibitors. For the first time ever, leading global events, AI Summit, also took part in this conference. Discussions were focused on regulation of the telecom sector, development of a startup ecosystem, and the construction of a platform for e-commerce on the continent. With nearly 843 million people without access to the internet as yet, investors are hoping to meet this growing need.
Djibril Ouattara, telecommunications specialist, now joins us on set to discuss this. Hello, Mr. Ouattara, and thank you for honoring our invitation.
Hello.
AfricaCom is one of the most important and influential events in the field of technology and telecommunications on the continent. What are the prospects and trends in the world of telecommunications in Africa?
AfricaCom
is the most important event in the telecommunications sector in Africa. This year, during the 21st edition, about 14,000 professionals gathered in Cape Town to discuss and exchange ideas. This year's gathering focused on mainly 4 themes, including the recurrent decline in income levels. Indeed, with increasing use of so-called social networks, traditional voice and SMS revenues are being affected, and revenues of operators are falling. Operators are still unable to find a way to compensate for this decline. The second theme is linked to the first, which is the need for the internet, as this is needed to compensate for this decline. However, it so happens at the moment in Africa there are many barriers to the use of the internet. The third theme is related to emerging technologies, particularly 4G. You know, we're currently looking at 4G in particular. And so, 5G is coming very soon. We're wondering how to ensure that Africa can adapt this new technology as soon as possible. The fourth theme is linked to mobile money, which is called mobile financial services. This service gives people who do not have access to traditional banks the opportunity to use financial services. And so, the whole sector thinks that it is a good alternative to lowering revenues, to increase revenues, and also to create this access to this financial service in the most remote corners of the continent.
Africa lagged behind in industrial revolution. It is estimated that with telecommunications, it can play on equal terms with other industrialized countries. In view of the latest trends, on what level should we accelerate to stay the course or compete with the biggest?
One thing that is true in the age of communication technologies is that any new technology today is instantly available anywhere in the world. For instance, when Apple launched the new iPhone, it was very easy to find it on the black market in Nairobi, in Brazzaville, or in Douala, before it even got into shops in some developed countries. This means that the technology is available for everyone at the same time. But the problem is how to ensure that African countries in particular have sufficient financial resources to make significant investment in terms of infrastructure. Singularly, Africa is behind in the digital world. We're naturally behind because the economy is not large. We cannot generate enough money to be able to develop our technological advances quickly enough.
We still suffer from the high cost of communications, and the trend is to tax internet and social network communication. What accounts for this? And what are the chances for consumers to continue enjoying these platforms without having to pay more?
You're touching on a key point of the industry. Till date, there have been a lot of talk about internet neutrality. Some countries have taken entrenched positions on this. The fundamental question is, should we charge differently for internet usage, depending on whether we make downloads, watch a video or use WhatsApp? Also, should we continue to make these important investments in social media that affect the traditional revenues I mentioned earlier, like voice and text messages? And you know that when there's a decrease in income, the state at least collects taxes, and therefore the state has less income. I think that many operators today have understood and completely changed the approach. And this does not only translate into significant efforts to improve the quality of the network, but also into a significant reduction in the cost of internet usage, and even the outright withdrawal of a number of services that create far more problems for customers than we can imagine.
qui crée beaucoup plus de problèmes aux clients qu'on ne peut le penser.
Thank you, Djibril, for the insight. Djibril Ouattara is telecommunications specialist based in Brazzaville, the political capital of Congo.
Thank you too for giving me the opportunity to speak to users of our services.
In Lilongwe or Mangochi, Malawi is attracting more and more gold miners, most of whom are illegal despite government warnings. Details after the break.